Hey everybody. This morning I grabbed coffee at Sheets, and I always love Sheets. But today I actually questioned myself on why I just didn't get coffee at the gas station I passed leaving my hotel. So I pulled out the hotel, I put Sheets in the GPS, then I saw this extra on the right by the main road where the hotel was, and I felt guilty for not stopping. But I kept driving to Sheets, and I added 4 minutes total to my trip back home. So when I got there, I hopped out of the car, and immediately I heard a band that I really enjoy blaring from the speakers. The store was clean, it was super bright red as you would expect, and my brief interactions with the staff, they were positive, and the coffee was pretty good too. But at the end of the day, I love Sheets because of the vibe they have successfully created, and they've become more than a gas station. So today, we're here to talk about how our panelists have become more than a brewery and how the atmosphere of their tap rooms impacts the experience. So, without further ado, let's meet our guest. And Justin, you're to the right of me. You get to go first.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Matthews. My wife and I are the owners of Aridness Brewing in Russell, Kentucky. We are a tea and tap house. So we have beer that's brewed by myself and tea that my wife lovingly blends together herself. And happy to be here to join you guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Justin. Dawn, you're up.
Hi, I'm Dawn Kirchner. I own Full Circle Brew Garden with my husband, Franz. And we have 12 taps of beer. I also brew kombucha, which is non-alcoholic. We do a variety of drinking vinegars as well. We call them shrubs. And then we have a half-acre garden behind our building. So we focus on natives and drought-resistant plants. And we feature right now 350 different varieties.
So tell us a little bit more about drinking vinegars.
Yeah, they sound a little intimidating, but essentially it's a way of preserving fruits, herbs. That works really well in vinegar and sugar. So it's basically a really, really concentrated flavor that then I mix with sparkling water. So it's almost like a mocktail. You don't really notice the vinegar at all.
That's super cool. No, Clay, we actually saw each other last night at the Virginia Beer Awards. But for anyone who hasn't hung out with you in person or virtually before, tell everybody a little bit more about you and Patch.
You bet. I'm Clay Heisel. I'm the general manager at Patch Brewing Company. We're in an itty bitty little town of 1,500 people in Gordonsville, Virginia, but about a half hour from Charlottesville. We are a former VFW site. So we've got 16 acres, a baseball field, ponds, gardens, and we have two separate venues set up for serving on weekends and just one on weekdays. We can seat because of our size, we're a little unusual to be in this small a town. We can seat 200 inside and 400 outside.
It's a pretty big space. And Clay, I went to your website a little while ago, and some of the things you've described, but I literally just want to read it because it's a lot.
Sure.
It says Patch brewed beer, local cider, local wine, canned cocktails, smash burgers, dog park, kids area, adult area, live music, tap room, pavilion, board games, arcade games, lawn games, baseball field, trails. Wow.
Something awesome for everybody.
So for everyone who hasn't been to Patch before, and I went in the early days before it's turned into the facility as today, but you pull up the Patch, you hop out your car, describe to me what I'm going to first experience.
Well, one nice thing is that having bought a former VFW, we have 200 parking spaces. So you pull up in one of the lots, one of which we've got campers in usually. You can see the baseball field and the volleyball courts and the dog park behind you. The main building is a large 1940s ugly cinder block flat building, but very soundproof, and it keeps AC really well here in Virginia. And then we also the outside where we've got live bands on weekends. So a little bit of everything. Fire pits all over the place, two different kids spaces, dogs. It's just become a community gathering spot for people.
Awesome. Now, Justin, tell us a little bit about your spot. I show up for the first time. What am I going to experience?
Well, so one thing I neglected to mention during the introduction is that we are actually in a former train depot. It was built in the early 1900s. We have customers that come in and say, "Oh, I remember when my grandparents would take the train to Cincinnati." But you're going to see train tracks. The trains still actively move. They move very loudly at times. So you're probably going to see trains. We've got a nice outdoor area. We just built a beer garden out of recycled pallets, fire pits. And when you walk in the building, it's funny because this morning we actually had a train spotter in the parking lot as we pulled in. And then I was explaining to him everything that we've done. But inside, we still got the bar that was the ticket desk that we've extended and added taps. We have a window with a bullet hole in it from a robbery back in the day. We've heard about 17 different stories, none of which can be, corroborated to one true story. So we just make them up as we go along. And, being a tea and tap house, like right now we have mint hanging from the ceiling because we have a herb garden outside that my wife, Kristen, grows the herbs. So you'll see, herbs hanging and drying. You'll see plants. We also are kind of a satellite location for a local plant store. My wife sells retail tea. So you just see a lot of different things and, beer, obviously, but just it's all over the place when it comes to Aridus Brewing.
Have you named a beer after the bullet hole in the story that goes with it?
We have not. We've named beers. We've kind of tossed out some railroad themes towards beers, but you just gave me an idea because we just named a beer after a fictional person. It's a long brew house story that I won't get into, but I think we might have to incorporate the bullet hole and the our invisible friend Regis Fred into a beer name now. So
I love to hear what you do. And one final question for you, Justin. Tell us a little bit about your beer name or your brewery name.
So Aridus is it's Greek. It's for river. It's actually a constellation, one of the largest in the southern hemisphere. And because of our proximity to the Ohio River, we kind of wanted to give a nod back to the river. We say this, and I say this every time I tell the story. As corny as it sounds, a river has built communities, it's built economies, and it's been responsible for people's dreams. And with us wanting to be a community gathering place, our dream of owning a brewery, and obviously want to make money. So that's the economy side of it. But yeah, just a nod to the Ohio River and its importance to the area.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that. Now, Dawn,
No problem.
I show up at your brewery for the first time. I drive the full 10 hours. What am I going to see when I hop out my car?
Yeah. So the first thing that when most people walk in, they comment, this is kind of like walking into my living room, which is what we were going for. We wanted a cozy, welcoming, warm environment that felt safe. And what better place than your living room? Plus, we knew, well, we're going to spend a lot of time here. So it's home away from home for us, too. So that's the inside. We used a lot of the room that I'm in is the original wood from the first building. It's been built on over the years. It was built in 1954, so the room is pine. Any of the other wood is upcycled wood, things that have been donated, bits of barn, pallets. All of the stain and the sealants have all been donated to keep it out of the waste stream. A lot of the furniture is upcycled. So things that I grew up with, my husband grew up with. Our children's area is actually his little kid's table, wood table and chairs that he had as a kid. So it's very warm and inviting. We have certainly, because when you walk out, the whole back is a half-acre garden. A lot of our pictures and artwork has a nature theme to it, and plants and insects. And a lot of the plants make their way in or outside. So it's very kind of organic feeling as well. But again, just very homey. We want people to kind of sit and stay. And we've got a lot of games that are floating around. We've got probably hundreds of different games for 2-year-olds all the way up to adults, and 1- and 2-player games and large crowds. So it's just a fun place to be and learn a little bit too.
Dawn, what's your favorite bug?
That's a really hard question. It probably depends on kind of the time of the year, but I follow a lot of gardening blogs. So right now I've been seeing a lot of assassin bugs popping up. And
everybody's Googling assassin bugs.
Like wheel bugs in particular, really cool type of assassin bugs. So great predators for your garden.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So now I've got a question for everybody. It's been fun hearing about what you offer at your breweries. It's so unique for all three of you. But, if you really have to think about it, what elements do you consider the most important in creating the right atmosphere in your tap room? If you have to take down all those things you said, maybe sum it up into 3 elements. What are those for you?
I'll go first, I guess. Because we are in a rural area, people who come to the nearest brewery to us is 10 miles away. People come to us, I want them to stay a while and have a good time. So that we've got comfy couches, we've got fire pits, we've got picnic tables, shade. I've got places for the kids to play, places for the dogs to play. We've got food, we've got music, I've got pinball, 50 or so board games, puzzles, a baseball field, kickballs, soccer balls, We love it when people bring the family and stay for a couple hours and just have a good time. We try and be a welcoming spot for absolutely everyone. So we've hosted perhaps some of, we've had drag shows here. We've had wakes here. We have kids' birthday parties almost every weekend. We're really trying to be just that community hall that the VFW here used to be.
How important is, it being an old VFW hall to like what you've created? Like when Patch started, was having that specific facility part of the business plan all along?
Not initially. Because we've got a baseball field, and this used to be where the Little League played all the time before ABC laws changed, we embraced baseball. And then we realized not many folks are coming here because of the ball. They're coming out here with dogs and kids. So we've now just become welcoming for everybody. And when I train people, I tell them every person who comes in, think of them as, especially if they're ordering a flight, they are a first-time reviewer. They are here for the first time. Let's make sure that we get a second time and a third time. And they tell two friends and they tell two friends. Or also, terrifyingly, every person is a potential Google review. So let's treat everyone like you want to treat like you treat yourself.
Because that new guest could be your next best customer. You never know.
Right. Or a secret hopper.
Maybe.
Have had that recently.
Now, Dawn and Justin, looking at what you've created, what are the most central elements to creating that vibe you go for?
Yeah, Clay, I think you summed up a lot in kind of what we do too. Always being welcoming. Everybody should feel welcome and safe here. We've only been open 10 months, and that's definitely kind of what we're known for. People know that they can come here. Everybody can sit. They don't feel like they're going to be rushed. If they've got kids, we love them. We've got treats for your dogs. And then also a place where you can just really sit and relax. If you don't want to be inside, you have a space outside that you really can immerse yourself in nature. Even if it's a half acre, you can go out and get a little bit of nature without having to drive miles away, just outside of a suburban area, which is really great. So, and then of course, people come because they like to ask questions. What's this weird picture of this insect hanging on the wall? Why do you have this? Oh, let me tell you about that. So of course, part of my background is biology, environmental science, and education. So I love to get into those conversations. But really just being a place for community to gather and have conversation. You'll notice there's no screens behind me. We're a screen-free zone, and we welcome conversation. We're trying to bring that back.
No, I love that. I mean, personally, I'm always trying to disconnect more and more and more. And I love when you go to a place that's more intentional and you can put your phone down and you don't see others on it, because we're there to be with each other.
Exactly.
Justin, how about you? Tell us a little bit more about those elements that are most important.
I guess having the benefit of going last, I can piggyback off them, but everything that they've said is spot on. It's about creating an open and welcoming environment. We've made sure that our, much like Dawn said, we've had customers come in and say, I feel like I'm at home. I feel like I'm visiting a friend's house, because comfortable chairs, we had a couch at one point, but we moved it out to make space for more seating. But yeah, creating a welcoming environment. One of our big things is education. So we want to make sure we like to educate people as they come in. So, we want people that are willing to learn about craft culture, whether it's craft beer, craft tea, things like that. And, also like Dawn, we have no screens and we refuse to give out Wi-Fi. And, because we like, I tell people, we have people come in and say, in Kentucky, UK basketball is, the biggest thing probably. And on days that there's Kentucky games, people say, are you showing the game? We say no. And they say, well, you should. And I tell them, for every one person that says we should get a TV, we have 10 that say, I'm glad you don't have TVs, because families come in, families, dogs. We actually had a tortoise here last weekend, a pet tortoise. I called it a turtle and got chastised because it is not a turtle. It's a tortoise. We have a game shelf. So yeah, it's just creating a comfortable environment. And, we're the only game in town right now. There's breweries in Ohio and West Virginia, but we're the first in our area. Population of 3,600 people. So we just, an inviting place for community to gather, drink beer, drink tea, and enjoy food from the food truck that Kristen's parents own. All those things.
So one word that each of you have said is comfortable, creating that comfortable space in your tap room. So I've heard couches, I've heard moving couches, I've heard make it feel like your living room. Looking specifically at making it comfortable, what part of your design, I'd love to go in a little more detail on that, helps facilitate that? And Dawn, I'm going to pick on you. You get to dive in because you've mentioned couches before.
Yeah, so we, in addition to comfy chairs, we also have area rugs. The wood itself, we're on concrete floors, but sometimes when you're on a lot of concrete and you have a lot of solid surfaces, it just feels very loud and not as soothing. So having a lot of those more organic elements has really helped quite a bit, having kind of those natural colors as well. So a lot of our art too is, again, because it's so nature-based, it's very natural color schemes, which all of that I think really helps to harmonize kind of the overall feel. When we can, we don't use as much lighting. So we're fortunate we've got a lot of windows. So low light environments. When we do have music, we keep it, the right tone. You can have a conversation, but not so, sometimes you go into places and it's too much. So we want to foster those conversations without having a lot of the background noise, but still kind of feeling warm and welcoming and comforting.
That was really insightful. Clay, how about you?
Well, because of our size, we have kind of different little pods where people congregate. So for those who enjoy the outside, you've got the backdrops, the Blue Ridge in the distance, and then you've got the green of the baseball field and the dog park in front of you. The VFW hall, which used to be also the bingo hall, it's kind of hard to make cement floor, 9-foot ceilings, and cinder block walls that comfortable. Shout out to Facebook Marketplace, where we've gotten a lot of that old this end up dorm furniture for free. So I have like 4 or 5 different conversation pits of indestructible furniture, which people hang out at, and especially been good for dogs, and no tortoises yet, and kids. But outside, we just encourage kids to run, families to gather around whatever fire pit or picnic table they want to, and just enjoy themselves.
I love how you lean in very hard to being so family friendly.
Totally.
Now, Justin, what are those aspects for you? How do you make it extra comfortable?
So it has to do with the lighting. We have, it's not very bright. We have bulbs. We make it, it truly does feel like you're walking into somebody's living room. So one thing I didn't mention, we have a fireplace. Now it's electric, but in the winter, we have people sitting around the fireplace, having drinks. It's the chairs, Clay talking about where he gets the furniture from. Remind me, all of our furniture in here, with the exception of things that we've built, like the bar, everything has been purchased from the Habitat for Humanity Restore, antique store, things like that. So none of our furniture is new or it's eclectic. We have mismatched chairs at tables. Not all of our tables look the same. Just the herbs. I don't know. It's just creating a very comfortable, keeping the original aspects of the building as well. We have the original safe. We have a wood burning fireplace that we're afraid to try because we don't think it's up to code, and our insurance company would not be happy with it. But yeah, I think that's the important things in music. We keep our music at certain levels. We use certain genres. But yeah, that's the extent.
Now, Justin, you and Dawn both mentioned lighting and how that plays out in your tap rooms. Is that something you thought about before you got in this business, or when did you realize that, oh, wow, something as little as the lighting can really kind of set the tone for what a guest is going to experience?
Honestly, it's something. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's something that we had considered, somewhat, but we didn't realize how important it was until we had people in here, because we wanted to make sure the lighting in this building is original. All the fixtures are original to the building from the early 1900s. So while they're cool, they aren't the best light source, and the bulbs go out all the time. We tell people it's the ghost when the light flickers, but Edison bulbs throughout the room to try to brighten it up. It's especially in the winter, we create a very warm vibe with the lighting. Our staff makes fun of me because I'm getting to the age where I can't see things as well as I used to. But when the lights are off, I complain, because we'll keep the bulbs on and turn the lights off to make it, like a cozy, winter type environment. But I cannot read the point of sale or my phone to save my life. So They
Make the
always
font
ask for
way too
permission.
small, Justin. That's the problem.
I know, right? And as you get older, fonts get smaller and smaller.
So Don,
Justin, we had that same thing. So I actually put in a separate circuit over the POS. So we can turn down our lighting for everything, but I keep the light over the POS on high. One is when for nights when we have music, you can easily see where the bar is. Mm-hmm. And two, yeah, I have 60-year-old eyes. I need to be able to see and in order to see the difference between a 10 and a 20 if we get any cash in.
Now, Don, when did you realize lighting was important for your space?
Well, certainly, as you go to more and more places, restaurant, brewery, wherever, the places that are super bright, sometimes they're just a little bit overwhelming. So that was something that we were aware of. And again, because we have nice windows here, we can play up on that. But, I worked for a number of years in museums, and, lighting has a lot to do with, your exhibitry too. So coming in from that background, having an understanding of the right amount of light to be able to read, and be able to not trip over things, but also not feel just a little manic at times is important. But feeling, a bright white versus a soft light plays a big impact. And we've got some accent, lamps and things. So in those darker areas, we can kind of turn those on and off, but it definitely helps.
Each of you have such a unique space. There's so many different aspects that contribute to it. You've talked about some of the bigger things, but I want to shift more kind of following that lighting rabbit hole. And Justin, you talked about bullet holes. What are some of the really little things in your tap room that you didn't expect to make a big difference in the experience that you've realized are very important? Don't tell me all your great ideas at once.
Obviously, the bullet hole is something that we knew was here, but we did not realize how much attention would be drawn to it. So much that we had to put plexiglass over it because you wouldn't understand the number of people that say, "Oh, is this real?" and stick their finger in it, or it could fall at any point. But we didn't realize that we knew going into an old train depot that there were train enthusiasts, but we didn't realize how important the train aspect would be. That we have customers come in and, just because of the trains. I mean, it's something that people notice. They notice when they see from the outside, but memorabilia, we have old pictures of the train depot. We have an old menu from a train car from years ago where a full breakfast cost, I think, like $1.25. So just the little things like that people notice and look at and then ask questions. And, then their friends come in, "Hey, we heard about this place. They said it was the coolest." So, that's and the bullet hole is the biggest thing that gets the most attention, other than amazing beers. But the bullet hole.
Other than the bullet hole, give me one more little thing that plays out more than you thought it would for the experience.
I think art plays a huge difference too, because we have local artists that post their paintings. We have a mural that was painted by a local artist. We have a huge I'll look in the other room as if you guys can see it, but I apologize. A huge old mural that's probably, I'd say, 10 feet long and 6 feet tall that we couldn't take down if we wanted to. But it's of an old train going to the U.S. Capitol. So I think art and just the different things that we have on display.
That mural sounds fascinating.
I'll snap a picture and share it at some point. Great.
Yeah, it's interesting, Justin, that you mentioned the art because we have a whole gallery wall kind of off to this side that you can't see. But a lot of the images and the art were things that have been in my family and my husband's family, have been given to us over the years. So there's little, they're special to us and we want to see them. But it's been interesting that people have asked us about where did you get this? And what about this? And this looks really interesting. Tell me about that. And people are genuinely interested in finding out, or what's this crazy giant bug that you have on the wall? Oh, my friend Steven took that when he was in Central America. It's called a weevil. So people are really interested to find out more about the objects, the artwork, and even our shelving. For a long number of years, Red Wing Shoe Store used to be here. So we have people that walk in and say, "Oh, I remember buying shoes here as when I was a kid." And we reclaimed all of the wood that used to house all of the shoes. And so in our hallway, they are now plant shelves. So people are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So just those little details that people see on the wall, and just, it's again kind of a conversation starter too that has worked much more than we thought it would. People really do take notice in those details, which is really neat.
And Don, when you're essentially inviting someone almost into your living room because you have so much personal belongings there, and I guess you have to give them a little trust to be, responsible around your husband's table that he grew up on, your family heirlooms hanging on the wall. Like, how do you give yourself the ability to trust people with those important objects?
Well, certainly some things that if we don't want it to walk off, it's not within reaching level. So some of those more special items are higher up or attached in a way that, wow, if you really want it that bad, then I don't know how you got it off with it being right next to the bar. So there is, like you said, a lot of trust. We know a lot of the other brewery owners in the area have had things that have walked off. Small restaurant owners that have had mirrors taken from bathroom walls. And I hope that doesn't happen. But, I think that can happen anywhere. And you just have to take a leap of faith that, people appreciate what you're doing, being a small business, and, they'd rather ask than take. So
cool. Thanks for sharing all that. Now, Clay, you have so many awesome pockets to your tap room and your brewery, your complex even. What are the little things that you found really important that you didn't anticipate being that vital?
Well, one thing was an accidental find, and another thing we leaned into. The accidental find is in the attic here of the tap room. Because this was the place for Little League, we found lots of old team photos from the 70s and 80s that we've put up on the wall. So on the hallway to the bathroom, we've got a dozen Little League team photos. So we have people saying, that's my dad, that's my grandpa, etc. So it's great to be able to still have that, and people love looking for them, their friends, their cousins, their whomever. The second thing that we discovered after we opened, and we're about 2.5 years old, is dogs. We are leaning into dogs heavily, so that we host 4 times a year Frisbee Dog Championships. In fact, we've got the Virginia State Finals here in September on our field. Dogs are welcome absolutely everywhere because, fortunately, because we're a farm brewery and farm winery, it's okay to have dogs anywhere except in the production area. If we were a restaurant, it'd be a different story. But we love our canines. We host dog adoptions. We have obedience groups come here for their socialization of puppies with strangers. And because of that, we have often on a weekend as many dogs as we do kids.
Awesome. Now, for all of you, I'm curious. We've talked about all the aspects that contribute to the overall vibe. How do you make sure the theme of your tap room, your brewery, aligns with your brand? And Donna, I'd love for you to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. Like when you're putting art on the walls, I imagine you might ask yourself, hey, does this work here, or does it not really, represent what we're going for?
Yeah, definitely a lot of our art, it's nature photographs, old images like botanicals, nature and plants. That's our theme. So that's what goes onto the wall. And a lot of that carries over into our beer name. So they're all kind of focused on nature and science, in kind of turning away from technology for a little bit. We've got a porter called the Luddite. So, again, even in the beer and the kombucha and different things that we brew, kind of keeping with that theme, and striking up the conversation. What is a Luddite? Or what do you mean voluntary simplicity? What does that mean? So head out to the garden with your beer and just take a step back. That's voluntary simplicity. It's all you need. It's a cold beer and a garden. Yeah.
Is that a term you've read somewhere, or that you thought it up yourself?
It is a term, yeah. So a lot of things are terms that we've read. So forest bathing is kind of a new way of immersing yourself in forest for mental health and just overall well-being. So that's the name of our West Coast IPA is Forest Bather. So kind of bringing some of these terms and ways of viewing the world into the tap room is important.
Do you have any recommended reading? I know that's a really open-ended question, but you talked a lot about, disconnecting and things like that. Is there anything you'd recommend anyone, dive into?
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who's interested, Doug Tellamy is a great scientist, and he actually started Homegrown National Park, which is actually a nonprofit that we'll be working with next month. And the whole idea is planting even one native in your backyard. If we collectively did that across the entire nation, we'll have as much, if not more, land space dedicated to native plants as our national park system.
So cool.
Yeah.
Now, Justin, for you, I mean, you're in an old train depot, and your story behind the brand is really great with the definition of your brewery. How do you make sure your vibe aligns with your brand?
I think much like what Dawn said, we make sure that our brand also includes our tea and the herbs that my wife Kristen is responsible for. As far we have a lot of our decorations are herbs and tea and flower themed, so it's good to for people to see that aspect. We also really push. We're big into craft culture, whether it be beer, whether it be tea, whether it be the food truck. The food truck does all handcrafted items, so we make sure that our brand reflects that these are crafts. It's we're making a craft beer. It takes time and ingredients. We're making craft tea. So yeah, just the craft aspect of it, and and teach people about the different aspects of our loves.
Justin, has there ever been a time you thought about incorporating something into your brewery, but then you realized it might not be a good fit?
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I mean, of course, we have, I think the easiest question would be beer names, because people come up with all these random beer names, but while they might be good names, they might be railroad themes. That's the thing. We don't want to ignore the fact that we are an old train station, and we do want to pay respect to the railroad and the fact that we're here because of it. But we try to not be too railroad centric, and a lot of the suggestions and comments and things, ideas that people have, might not necessarily fit in our vibe. Especially when it comes, we also, in addition to beer and tea, we have a small selection of liquor and Kentucky bourbon, obviously, and then a few mixed drinks. And people always say, "Oh, well, you should say every time a train goes by, everyone gets a shot for $1." And like, number one, that's not the environment we're promoting, and number two, that's just a horrible idea. So just things like that, but nothing too major.
No, those are two great examples. Clay, how about you? Talk to us a little bit about how you make sure everything matches the vibe, matches the brand.
Being that we're a half hour from Charlottesville, Virginia, being a college town, there was a diner there that used to have in different colored shingles on their roof where tourists, townies, and students love to meet. That diner is closed, but I kind of view that as our unofficial motto. We bring in, we're 2 hours from DC, so we have the weekenders who come down for their Airbnbs. We're an hour away from Richmond and a half hour from Charlottesville. So we have people doing day trips. We're surrounded by wineries. So a lot of folks are doing the alcohol tourism, which this place is known for. And then we've got the locals who come here because it's the only place where you can find beer. So you never know who's going to be the next table. And I love it when I see tables talking to one another. And if anything, that's truly what makes me happy, is that people are comfortable enough in terms of the vibe that we're trying to develop that you can just have fun and make new friends.
Okay, I've got two questions I want to ask you. You threw me that great statement at the end, so it took me off my first question. But I'm gonna go with the first question anyways.
Sure.
Early on, you had mentioned that you leaned in pretty hard to the baseball theme, and you've kind of backpedaled on that a little bit. Is that correct?
We have.
Not that you don't have baseball stuff there. You have a baseball field, of course. But,
right.
What made you decide that maybe we don't want to be that baseball brewery? We want to be something, a little bit different.
One is that people aren't playing baseball now the way they used to. And also with Virginia ABC laws here, we cannot do anything that seems to support those under 21. For instance, we can't host Girl Scouts to sell cookies or Boy Scouts to sell trees. In Virginia, you can't buy merchandise or apparel in children's sizes. So that we realized most folks we're playing baseball, we're kids. We had to be anti-kid when it came to baseball. People can come here and play pickup games or come and shoot soccer, but we can't organize anything or even advertise that we have things for kids. So that was one thing, is that adults, this is just not a baseball type of area. But we saw that dogs it's like, okay, let's lean into dogs. Yeah, we got a baseball field, but we have a baseball field where your dog can play Frisbee.
Awesome. Now, thanks for sharing all that. My next question is, you mentioned that you love to get people talking to one another.
Mm-hmm.
How do you create that space and ability for strangers to strike up those conversations?
It tends to be over two things. One, coming back, it's dogs. If you see a table with a dog, or a puppy, it's a natural thing to ask who that is. Can I pet them? We've got dog biscuits available at the bar, so that. And dogs are the biggest conversation breaker. The second is the burgers. We have smash burgers, and right now we have our own homegrown tomato BLTs. The food, people, oh, that looks good. What is that? And we often see people talking about the food as well. But number one is the dogs. So we love them.
I mean, who doesn't want to pet a puppy, right?
Exactly.
Now, Dawn, I mean, I'd love to hear your take on that. How does your space and your brewery facilitate these conversations between strangers?
Yeah, so some of it's interesting. People just sit down and start talking. It's really interesting. But some of the things that we do that kind of gather like-minded individuals, other than beer and kombucha, we do plant swaps. So we did seed swaps this past fall. People are really, really into plants. So that has really helped get some individuals in. We also do a monthly plant-based potluck. So people come in with their favorite plant-based recipes. We tend to change up the theme. And again, as Clay was saying, food really gathers people together. When you sit down at a table, it's just a natural thing. Conversation flows. So that has been really helpful. And then some of the other events that we do really help to, again, get people in, because I want to help this organization, this nonprofit. You like it, I like it. What else do we have in common? And then, of course, all the games. People get really into games. I've seen tables combine, like, ooh, that's really fun. Oh, there's enough. Do you want to join us? So that's actually been a really fun thing. We just keep adding more and more games. So games work, play the games.
What's your go-to game? Do you have one you really enjoy playing with people?
That's a really good question. I would probably say I'm a traditional Monopoly person. But, sometimes the games with lots of pieces and longer playing time is tough in this environment. So pretty much any card game. But Battleship is a really huge one. The kids pass that around here. That is a favorite of all ages. So
do you ever have any tournaments for the games?
We have not yet. We've kind of thought about that. In former jobs, we have done Battleship tournaments. So I kind of would like to do that at some point, but not just yet.
Keep me posted.
Yeah.
Now, Justin, how do you get people who've never met before having those conversations and more intimate encounters?
A lot of ours, I'd say event-based, basically. We, on the same trend of Dawn with plants and those being popular, we've held plant swaps. We have my wife does herbal education, so we have workshops. So we've had days where people come in and they learn about a certain set of herbs. They make a product out of the herbs. Get involved with community events, getting people here for a reason. We'll have a poetry night, and we have people that come in for poetry, and they start talking. We're actually, one of the crazier events that we have is we're having a bring your own pool party. So we have a feeling that will get people talking out in the parking lot. But I was thinking, the thing that gets people talking the most in our brewery is our regulars, because we have a hardcore group of people that have been coming since we opened, and they are here, not every day, all day long, but we have this couple that we call them the ambassadors of aridness, because they'll be sitting at the bar and people will come in, and within the next 10 minutes, they're sitting at the bar with them and they're swapping phone numbers, friend requesting on Facebook. So it's our hardcore group of customers that basically do a lot of the talking for us. I mean, it's not just those two. It's just the people that come again and again, see someone new, they talk to them, and then the next thing you know, we've got a group of people that meet here regularly.
So at one point, your two ambassadors you just referenced, I'm sure they were strangers. How did you convert them from being, that first time guest into being ambassadors for your brand?
I think establishing a relationship. The number of people we became friends with since we've opened up the brewery, but they would come in regularly. We would start talking to them, and they felt comfortable to come again and again. They often joke. They say, "Oh, we only came here because it's about damn time someone put one of these around here." But it's a retired couple, and it just creating the relationship, making them feel comfortable. Treating them like their family, and just making a comfortable place for them to have a glass of wine, one of our blonde ales, and just fostering the relationship from the beginning. And they're like I said, we do call them our ambassadors, and they'll go out of town and they'll say, "Oh, we told the people of this winery all about you," and it's like, well, they're 7 states away, but thank you. It's like they say they spread the gospel of aridness.
I mean, that's amazing. They go on these vacations to other places where they're drinking alcohol and they want to talk about you. I mean, that speaks to what you've created.
Yeah. And it also feel good too, because they'll send pictures, and the husband will send me a picture and say, "Yours is better," because he'll drink a blonde ale at a different brewery. He's like, "Yours is better." So they're good for the self-esteem.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, these interactions you have with guests like those, it's with you and your staff. How do you use these staff interactions with the guests to enhance the vibe?
I mean, we encourage our staff to, obviously you want a friendly staff. You want people who are engaging, people who listen to the customers. But we just encourage the staff to just, I mean, it sounds dumb, and I don't know the best way to say it, just be nice to people. It's like customers come in, they've not been here for the first time. They greet them, they make sure they know the ins and outs of it, check on them. And, it's just making sure the staff promotes the family friendly, the encouraging and open environment that we've built. And it even comes down to, even when we're hiring new people, that's one of the things that we internally talk about is, do they fit the vibe? It's not like we're not looking for a certain type of person. We're looking for a certain person that will fit the whole vibe, and basically the customer service aspect.
No, I love all that so much. I mean, it's not dumb, but you do have to be friendly. I mean, we've all had encounters at other breweries or other businesses where just staff made you not want to go back. There's nothing better when you go to a brewery and the beers, it has to be great, of course, but then you go and you leave, you're like, wow, Dawn was the best bartender I've ever had. I can't wait to go back to Full Circle. I mean, that's what it's all about, because people are craving not just your beer, but the vibe, your staff, and every little part of it.
Yeah, that's a big thing that we push. I mean, we're pretty limited. It's me, my husband, and we've got, a front lead bartender, and then another part-time bartender. So, that's a big thing. Like, you have to make eye contact. You have to be warm and welcoming. If there's a line, making sure that people know we see you, we'll get to you. There's some menus over on the table if you want to take a look. But just give us a few minutes. Thanks so much for coming. We appreciate you. If possible, floating around the floor. Of course, we have people order it at the bar, but if you get a chance, stepping away and actually saying, how have you liked everything? Do you have any questions? I can get these empties out of your way. Can I bring you anything else? Did you see our games? Was this your first time? Striking up that conversation. And we're really fortunate. Both people that we have behind our bar right now, we've known for years. So we knew kind of early on, like, both of you would be great brand representatives of what we do. And that's a big thing. If you hire right the first time, you won't have any problems. So, yeah.
I think hiring right is key. The other thing is, even though I'm the GM, I'm still behind the bar 2 or 3 days a week, so that I encourage folks. I'm watching them; they're watching me. You kind of learn together, and because I'm a past educator, I'll give pointers when there's not a customer in front of someone of things that they perhaps could have done, or watch me. Let me trying as I'm doing table touches and taking away the glasses and taking the trash and answering questions. Let's make everyone just have a great time. And treat people the way you want to be treated yourself, or that you want your mom to be treated, or your sister to be treated, goes a long way. And occasionally there are some staff who are slower on that. We can also, because good and bad things. I've got a staff of 20. We can be more selective in who we're going to put on certain days. And the days which we know we're going to get a crush, but we still want people to be friendly, we'll get some of the stronger people. And some of the slower nights may get those who maybe need a little bit more coaching still.
So let's go deeper into that with, like, training your staff, Clay. And, because obviously, as we were talking about, staff is play a huge role in the vibe of your tap rooms. We say all these things like you should greet your guests, you should offer recommendations. Clay, you like flights, but how do you get your team to actively do these things?
Well, for us, every flight is a first timer. And we'll do 50 to 70 flights on a weekend. So that's a lot of first time viewers we've got.
There's so many people probably cringing at that right now.
Yeah, it's an awful lot. And it was certainly, I thought that would be what it like for our opening weeks. 2.5 years in, we're still doing over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 50 to 80 flights easily. More on good weather days than rainy days. But we've got so many first timers coming in.
So what's the secret there, though? Because as we all know, the industry has a love-hate relationship with flights sometimes. I personally love them, but you're talking about serving lots of flights on a Saturday. How do you get your team to buy in for those flights that open the doors to telling more stories?
I will have one person on a busy day does nothing but pour. So that there'll be the people at the POSs. I'll have, because I have 2 different venues, I'll have 1 to 2 bartenders at each venue just taking the orders and dealing with that transaction, who are going to be super friendly. And the person who's perhaps not as engaging with strangers will be tasked on doing nothing but the pouring. And we just go at it. We're able to deliver the flight with a smile, even though you maybe while you're pouring those 50 flights, be frowning at the tap, you present it well. But yeah, we've got so many first timers. And I think partially it's because we have so many wineries near us that we've become the beer stop among the wineries and distilleries. But we want them to, someone in that party of 6 or 8 or 4 wanted beer. So we want them all to make grilled. It was a great stop. But
as shown on your website, you do also have wine.
We do have wine. We have cider is huge for us. Cider is about 12% of total revenue. I've got 5 taps of cider, all local. So, because in any group of 4, not all 4 are going to be beer people. Someone's going to want the canned cocktail. Someone's going to want the wine. Someone's going to want, more than one often wants the cider. You can do a cider flight with us. Again, we're trying to be, anyone who comes by will find something they can like.
Now, Justin, you mentioned, everybody just be friendly, right? It sounds so easy to say, but how do you get your team to actually just be friendly? Any tips?
Well, I think it starts with picking the right people. We had a staff member who was fantastic for the most part, but after they left, they said, "Man, I'm glad she's not here anymore. She just was not friendly to us." And it's like I said, it's picking the right people. You lead by example, like Clay said, just watching. It's not uncommon for my wife and I to have to work the tap room, and we'll be on with staff, and they see how we treat the customers, and they see the dumb jokes we make to keep them laughing, and just it's picking the right people and making sure that they know what to do. You train them up and lead by example, and hope it works out.
When you're hiring, Justin, are there any questions you're really proud of that are part of the interview process?
No, nothing that really stands out. We ask the typical, how would you handle difficult customers? We tend to ask them how they would, describe beers. That's one of the big things we found is, how people talk about the beers. And, even we had one staff member that this is just, I guess it is about being nice, but it was funny because she said, "I don't even like beer, but I'll lie and tell them which one of yours I like best." So, it's just, I don't think there's anything we really ask other than just getting a gauge of their personality. And, I hate to say it, but when my wife and I interviewed, we typically can tell if the person is going to fit us within the first 5 minutes of the interview, just based on how they respond and how they present themselves as far as personality wise.
It's all about that vibe.
Yeah.
Now, Dawn, I'm very curious on your stance on like education. Obviously, it's so important when you're serving things like drinking vinegars. So when you're hiring someone, are there questions that you're asking potential candidates? And once they're there, how are you teaching them about all the things Full Circle stands for?
Yeah. So again, we haven't been open for too long, so we haven't had to do too much hiring. Luckily, we're very fortunate with that. But a lot of it is, first question is always, why would you want to work here versus another tap room, another bar, another restaurant with, drinks? And a lot of it is, I like the fact that I will have the opportunity to have a lot of conversations. So that's always a big thing that, our team really likes to engage with people. And we're very fortunate too. They're also very curious about different types of craft styles. Most places around here do not have kombucha. A lot of people who walk in have no idea what kombucha is. Less people know what a shrub is. So they're very curious. And as they have conversations, we're kind of learning together what are the best ways to describe these beverages that are still fairly unknown, in terms that people will understand and kind of take to a little bit easier. So we're all kind of the kombucha's been a little bit easier. Shrub's a little less difficult, a little more difficult. But typically people try it and they love them. And then typically if people get really into nitty gritty details about the kombucha or shrub making process, they flag me down and say, you have like detailed questions, and then I get giddy. So, my husband and I here most of the time, just like Justin said, we hop in behind the bar a lot. So we're all still kind of learning together. So, which is fun. So same thing, like Clay said, you lead by example. So you have those conversations and the dialogue that you mirror what you want to see.
Thanks, Don. In the industry right now, being more than a brewery is obviously something we're talking a lot about, and events play a huge role in that. How do some of the events that you do at your facilities kind of help increase the vibe? And how do you, pick and choose which events, work for your space?
We're willing to try almost anything, and we've thrown a lot of things against the wall in the 2.5 years. But we try and have something every single day that we're open. It may just be, half price hot dogs, but we do karaoke every week. We've got trivia. We have painting class. We have, of course, I mentioned the dog events. This coming Saturday, we're hosting a veterans motorcycle ride to raise money for wounded warriors. We just look for things that will be engaging, that someone will have a good time doing. We're fortunate enough to have 2 venues and an outdoor space that we can have multiple things going on. The one thing that we have tended not to go for is the whole wedding market. Again, we're surrounded by wineries. That's a huge part of their thing. And a lot of folks come to this area because of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the wineries and the open space. We've done one wedding, not fun. We'd rather go for the bachelorette, or better yet, the rehearsal dinner time, and let this be the more relaxed, engaging kind of place for friends. That one nice thing is that because I've got the multiple venues, I could have a group of 75 in one area and it not affect the 200-seater space. Or vice versa, when we have the drag shows, they get the 200-seater and we operate the bar out of the 100-seater.
Are you planning all these events yourself, Clay, or you have a team helping you?
I have my taproom manager and I pretty much do it. We, because we have the space, we get approached by a lot of people. We talk about it with the owners and the brewer and decide what we want to go for while not overburdening anything.
Thank you, Clay. Justin, talk to us a little bit about, how events play into the vibe.
So our events, we try to hold an eclectic mix of events. I guess would be the best term for it. So every year we have an Oktoberfest. It's technically the first Oktoberfest in our area, and every year we grow it bigger. But we want events that bring everyone. We don't just want to focus on a specific person, a specific group. So when we have our Oktoberfest, we make sure there's games for kids. We make sure there's stuff for everyone. But we also do things like one of the largest events we've had as far as participation and attendance one evening. Well, not this past fall, but the fall before last, we had what we called the Ghouls and Goblins Night Out, where the brewery basically closed down. People we'd had like someone learned they had someone teaching how to make broomsticks, how to make potions, which were teas, and we had vendors outside. Kind of a Halloween. It wasn't a Halloween party per se, but it was a Halloween themed event. Had even things like tarot card readers. We just made it kind of I guess kind of the more obscure Halloween. For Christmas this past year, instead of a Christmas event, we had Krampus. So they threw me in a Krampus costume with a mask that was like 4 sizes too small. And we, had kids and family. We try to find things that no one else is doing, but yet it will draw in the crowd. Like I said, coming up this Saturday, we're having, my wife saw the idea somewhere, a parking lot pool party. So everyone is bringing their own baby pool. We're going to fill them up. We're going to have our staff go out and take, poolside drinks. And, my wife talked me into it, but we purchased an inflatable blow up castle that I think I told someone it'll fit 1.5 adults or 13 kids, so it's going to be hard pressed for us both to fit in it. But yeah,
is it a bounce house
like
too?
Yeah, there's a bounce house in it. And
my wife somehow convinced me, or I should say she went and got probably the exact same one you just have for our backyard.
Well, how did it, is it
it was easier to clean and put away than I thought it would be. And the kids had a great time. So it was all right.
Yeah, that's events that just bring wide variety of interest, bringing everyone in. So
you're very cool. And Dawn, talk to us a little bit more about the events you're doing at Full Circle.
Yeah, so we're still pretty new. We haven't been open a year yet, but a lot of what we've been doing is, of course, more animal focused or focused on helping our metro parks or Allwood Center. So at Mardi Gras, we did a Beads for Birds event where we sold beads for the birds, which was our local Allwood Audubon Center, which was really fun. So we had lots of decorations, and we had a local baker who did specialty little mini king cakes for the evening, which was a lot of fun. Actually, tomorrow we're doing a rain barrel workshop. I think I mentioned that earlier. We do yoga in the garden. So we have, a yoga instructor that she does kind of a relaxing yoga series every month in the garden, which is great. Again, getting people really immersed. We actually next weekend, we're doing an event, again, looking at bug identification. That's not going to be for everybody, but we're pretty excited about it. And then we do a lot for some animal rescues as well. So making sure that, again, people love dogs and people love cats. So bringing awareness to the fact that we've got a lot of need for homeless animals and fosters in our area and trying to make those connections. So we had a giving tree during Christmas. So we had little ornaments that people could take off, and the needs for the animal rescue, they could buy, kibbles or, cat beds, all sorts of things, and put it under the Christmas tree for our local animal rescue. So that was really popular.
Very neat. Thank you all for sharing. It's been so cool to learn about your special vibes and how you've created them today. So I'd love to end with one final question. And because Justin, you got to kick us things off, you get to go last this time, so you don't have to stress about it just yet. Clay, that means you're first.
Okay.
I'm curious, Clay, for anyone listening here today, we've talked a lot about creating a vibe at your business. What was one recommendation you have for everyone to kind of succeed with that at their business?
I would say the one thing which has also proved very helpful to us is having the support of the community, not just the people, but also the other stores and vendors and restaurants and hotels in the area. Finding ways to reach out. So when people say, I'm now in this little town, what else should I do? We become one of the first 3 things they think about doing. So that would be what you can do to be involved in your own local community service, Chamber of Commerce or merchants group, reaching out to other hotels and restaurants and drinks purveyors, and referring to each other and being supportive as colleagues in this industry. So yes, part of our vibe also is by being open to others.
Clay, I think you might need to give a talk at the virtual conference this fall, exactly what you just said, how you made it work.
Thank you.
Okay, Dawn, your turn.
All right, so I'm going to piggyback on that, and then I'll add on to it. So we do not have a kitchen, but we are right next door to a food hub. And so basically they said, if we put a kiosk in your tap room and deliver in the tap room, would you host that kiosk? Absolutely, we will. So that has been fantastic for both of us. So I definitely agree with that, finding ways that you can work together, because people are buying their food, our beverages, it's a win-win. But then I think on top of that is kind of sticking, if you've got kind of a mission that you want to keep, keeping with that mission. I came from a nonprofit background. Mission drift is a thing. So if there is definitely, the bigger mission that is important to you, for us, it's nature, science, being attuned to the environment and the natural world. We're very keen to make sure that everything that we do is still very focused on that. So we're keeping to the goals and the vision and the values that we want people to walk away with.
No, great insight there. I love it. Justin, take us home.
Well, I have to piggyback off what Clay and Dawn said. It is working with people. It's everything they said. We try to work with our city as well. We're trying to be the change in certain areas, like get an entertainment district, things like that, to try to help everyone downtown with their businesses. But I think, as far as thinking of the question, what do you recommend anyone listening to do? I think try it, because that's the one thing. We're only 2.5 years into it. A lot of the things that we've done to create the vibe, we thought, hey, well, let's try this out. Like, for instance, the quirky events we have. Those we came up with an idea, tried it. I mean, I know that we have a lot of skin in the game, so you don't want to try something for too long that's not going to work. But I mean, I think get weird with it, get creative, and if it fits in your vibe, it doesn't sacrifice your integrity, your brand, or your mission, then give it a go.
No, that was fantastic. And Justin and Dawn, I hope to visit your brewery someday. And Clay, I hope to make it back. So I appreciate you all taking the time today. And Justin, Dawn, and Clay, see you soon, and hopefully pints before too long. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.